Okay, and then right over here is where we're gonna put your dance floor.
All right. We need everyone to gather in the dining room. Immediately.
South Park just destroyed the White House in its latest episode, and it did it with humiliation no one ever expected. The show ripped the illusion of control apart and exposed power as distracted, hollow, and embarrassingly unserious. This was South Park dragging the White House into the spotlight and letting it collapse under its own absurdity. What South Park did was far colder. It treated the White House like a malfunctioning machine, opened the hood, and let it keep sputtering while everyone watched. No shouting or moral lecture, just exposure. And exposure is vicious when the thing being exposed is already hollow. South Park doesn't care who you vote for. It just shows you what power looks like when it's bored with itself. The episode isn't really about Trump as a person. Trump is just the mascot. The real target is what happens when authority turns into a performance and governance becomes background noise. And that's where Greenland comes in.
They need to have control of Greenland. They're in the process of trying to, of the early stages of building something which he calls the Golden Dome. This is a pan-North America anti-missile defense system like Israel's Iron Dome. And he says that they need to have Greenland to put components here.
Trust between allies is broken. From the BBC, I'm Tristan Redmond in London. And today on The Global Story, have the last few days done irreparable damage to the transatlantic relationship?
The Greenland Plan is introduced with all the dramatic weight of a historic move. Big words, big ambition, global chessboard energy. This is supposed to be serious, strategic, world-shaping, and South Park instantly strips it down to what it actually is: an impulsive flex dressed up as policy. Greenland isn't treated like a nation or a strategic asset. It's treated like a trophy, something to point at, something that sounds impressive when you say it out loud. That's the joke, and it's sharp. The show doesn't need to exaggerate. It just tightens the frame. The language says global dominance, but the behavior says half-baked idea that sounded cool 5 minutes ago. And here's the brutal part. The plan doesn't collapse because someone stops it. There's no resistance, no dramatic showdown. It collapses because nobody in the room can stay focused long enough to care. South Park is saying something nasty here. When policy is treated like branding, it doesn't fail loudly, it just dissolves.
And Trump is outflanking even the most far-right forces in the United States to the right, in case you were wondering whether we're in extremist territory here.
The White House itself is portrayed as a place allergic to completion. Every serious conversation is interrupted by something smaller, louder, and more personal. Big decisions are announced before anyone understands them, then they're dropped mid-sentence because attention has already moved on. It's not chaos in the exciting sense, it's chaos in the lazy sense.
Okay, so then over here is where you're gonna have the big golden pillars that you guys wanted.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Okay, and then right over here is where we're gonna put your dance floor.
All right.
Wait, dance floor? I thought we were knocking the east wing down to make room for the nursery.
What?
The nursery?
The staff doesn't help. They're not scheming villains. They're worse than that. They're empty vessels. They nod, they echo, they agree with everything and contribute nothing. Nobody challenges, nobody refines, nobody says maybe this is stupid. The building is full of people whose primary skill is staying in the room, and that's why Greenland was doomed from the start. Not because it was unrealistic, not because it was blocked, but because it was born in a room where nothing survives longer than the next distraction. Then South Park twists the knife with the ballroom storyline.
In the corner.
At first, it feels ridiculous. Why are we talking about chandeliers while the White House is supposedly making global moves? And that's exactly the point. The ballroom isn't a side joke, it's the symbol. It's ego made physical, a legacy you can walk through, a monument to look what I built, while everything else rots quietly.
The dystopian insanity of people being able to, like, make your likeness do whatever they want. It's just like this brilliant kind of...
And Peter Thiel, no spin on the ball needed.
No.
What a dark time.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
But they're hitting all the right marks here.
The show makes the contrast painfully clear. While serious responsibilities pile up, energy is poured into appearances, into aesthetics, into things that feel grand but accomplish nothing. This is leadership as interior design. The bigger the fantasy of greatness, the smaller the interest in consequences. South Park doesn't scream this at you. It lets the silence do the work. The world feels unstable. The stakes feel high. And the priority is wallpaper. Not solutions, not planning. Wallpaper.
What is that? Oh, deception! Deception!
And that's when the episode really lands its punch. It doesn't say this is dangerous. It says something far more humiliating. This is unserious. The White House isn't just shown as a command center of calculated power. It's shown like a reality show set where attention resets every 5 seconds, where announcing something matters more than doing anything, where legacy is confused with decoration. That's why the episode feels meaner than usual. South Park isn't angry. It's disappointing. Worse, it's boring. And boredom is lethal to authority. When people stop being shocked and start shrugging, power bleeds out quietly.
Mr. Carr, why do you keep meddling in my plans? Oh? I've been trying to convince the boss to get rid of the baby. I'm next in line to be president. That baby cannot be born.
Trump isn't portrayed as a mastermind or even a villain here. He's portrayed as a distraction machine. Something was always pulling focus away from whatever mattered 5 minutes ago. Greenland, forgotten. Governance, optional. What matters is whatever feeds the ego fastest.
Nobody feels for you the way that I do. Nobody does.
We got. This
Yeah.
is.
We're still there.
We're still just doing nice.
Oh, there's Lincoln. Lincoln watching JD Vance have
Oh boy.
with Donald Trump.
Oh my God.
And that's the final insult. South Park doesn't try to destroy Trump with outrage. It erases him with irrelevance. It turns the most powerful office in the world into background noise for its own vanity projects. And then South Park goes even lower, not by accident, not because they ran out of ideas, but because they wanted to make a point so humiliating that it sticks in your brain like gum on a shoe. Enter the butt baby. Yes, that butt baby.
Ah, yes, we're paranormal investigators. We've been asked to come and investigate the mysterious woman in the hat.
On the surface, it looks like South Park doing what South Park always does, being gross for shock value. But that's the trap. The butt baby storyline isn't random stupidity, it's intentional degradation. It's the show taking the concept of presidential legacy and dragging it through the floor until it hits pure biological nonsense. Not metaphorical nonsense, literal nonsense.
You think I don't want to leave? I am bound to him!
Bound to him? How?
That's the move. South Park doesn't argue with Trump's ideas. It replaces them. Instead of policy debates, you get a grotesque distraction that eats up screen time. And that's the point. The shock isn't the grossness. South Park has been gross for decades. The shock is how accurate it feels. While big decisions are supposedly being made, attention is hijacked by something ridiculous, loud, and ego-centered. Policy disappears. Focus evaporates. The room follows the spectacle.
I can feel the tides of change. The final showdown is upon us.
That butt baby isn't about immaturity. It's about misallocated attention. It's about how absurd distractions don't interrupt power. They become power, while the audience is forced to watch something deeply stupid. Serious things quietly slide off the table, and South Park is ruthless enough to say it out loud without saying it at all. Then look at who's standing around while all this is happening. The staff, the people who are supposed to be the adults in the room. South Park doesn't turn them into villains. There's no shadowy mastermind, no evil genius pulling strings. Instead, they're reflections, echoes, human mirrors. Every bad idea enters the room and comes back louder, shinier, and more confident. Nobody challenges. Nobody refines. Nobody says, this is going nowhere. They don't stop bad ideas. They polish them, and that's where the rot is. Just emptiness and collective unseriousness. An entire system built around reacting instead of thinking, around agreeing instead of governing. Greenland doesn't fail because of sabotage. It fails because nobody in that room actually believes in anything long enough to defend it.
I am Stephen Miller, Senior advisor to the president for immigration and domestic policy.
This is South Park at its most surgical. It's not saying these people are evil. It's saying something more damning. These people are unserious. And unserious people in serious positions are dangerous precisely because they don't feel dangerous. They feel silly, distracted, temporary. Which brings us to why this episode hits harder than straight up criticism ever could.
Epstein!
No, you're right. Let's stop this.
Outrage-based criticism feeds the system it claims to hate. It creates villains, it creates teams, it creates noise. South Park refuses to do that. There are no accusations, no moral speeches, no calls to action, just structure. Just placement, just watching power trip over itself in real time. Ridicule works differently. It doesn't fight authority, it removes the myth holding it together. Once something looks incompetent, control evaporates. Once something looks hollow, anger turns into laughter, and laughter is lethal. You can argue with critics, you can fight protesters, you can't recover from being boring and ridiculous at the same time. That's why the episode never says, this is evil. It says, this is empty. And emptiness doesn't inspire fear or loyalty, it inspires disengagement. Zoom out and the scope gets even colder. Global consequences exist in this episode, but they're treated like background noise, off-screen, barely acknowledged. America's power is assumed, not exercised, taken for granted, like a credit card. No one checks the balance on anymore. The White House isn't shown as the center of the world. It's presented as a sitcom set where big things are implied but never addressed. The Greenland collapse becomes a metaphor, not just for one bad idea, but for declining seriousness. Decisions are announced, not followed. Authority exists, but it floats. Nothing lands, nothing sticks. The empire doesn't fall with explosions or speeches. It fades into punchlines. That's the chilling part. Empires don't always collapse in flames. Sometimes they get laughed out of relevance. And South Park knows that boredom is the final weapon. The episode doesn't end with chaos, just the next distraction sliding into frame. Viewers aren't angry by the end, they're disengaged. And when people stop caring, power loses meaning fast. South Park didn't destroy Trump with rage, it didn't even try. It erased him with irrelevance. Turned the most powerful office on Earth into background noise for its own absurdity. This is what South Park has always done at its best. While institutions speak carefully and commentators hedge every sentence, a cartoon says the quiet part out loud. Not with fact sheets, not with think pieces, but with humiliation sharp enough to expose the truth underneath.